What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. FPSGuides here, and I am Mr. Top Hat Jones, and with me to discuss our impressions on Watch Dogs Legion is none other than DC Smith 907, Mr. Dan. How's it going, Dan?
Hey there, how's it going?
Pretty good. So let's just jump right into it. So just for context, I don't have any experience with this franchise, Watch Dogs, at all. I didn't play one or two, so I don't really have any love affair or anything with the series. What about you? What's your history with this series?
So I jumped into it with two, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. So I figured I'd give this one a shot. I played a lot of Ubisoft games, but not so much all the Watch Dogs series, and I figured it would be pretty interesting.
Okay. So I guess top level feelings. Are you enjoying it so far?
Yeah, so far it feels like something you sort of come to expect from Ubisoft with some extras added on top. I think they added in some new kind of side modes that are interesting and some new aspects.
Okay, so is it I guess you said typical Ubisoft, right? So like I guess it's very map marker driven. Like you zoom out of the map and you're like, wow, I have a jillion things to do. Like is it
There's
like that?
there's definitely some of that. Yeah, there are eight main boroughs that you get to interact with and liberate as you're working your way through the story. So
Okay, I
so
guess
far I've liberated
that's a good
one,
place to
but
start. The story.
say again.
That's a good place to start. The story. Kind of like, can you give me like an overview of kind of what it is about?
So it feels a little bit like so for players who are familiar with the Watch Dogs series, it'll feel sort of familiar to you. So it's got sort of the same kind of like environment going on. It sort of feels like a futuristic GTA with like a little bit of a police state going on. There's like some interesting. They take on some sort of like some social dilemmas, and they say just this is not related to real life in any way, of course, but
Huge
they're definitely taking
disclaimer.
on some issues, right?
Okay, so how far would you say you're into the game, or how long have you played actually? Because I'm sure you can play the game totally different, and you can get a different amount of hours. So, how
Yeah.
far have you played?
So I'm playing it in more of a roundabout way. I'd say I tend to do that with like open world games, but there's a lot of leeway to do that. So I've played about 6 or 7 hours already, and I've only done two or three of the main missions because I keep recruiting new operatives. I find that to be one of the better things that they did in this game was the way you get to interact with pretty much anybody in the game. It's kind of interesting. It doesn't feel like a cookie cutter situation so much. They all sort of have their own backstories and uh, different kind of traits.
Okay, that's because that I know just like seeing like promotional trailers and all the marketing material. That was something they really hinged on was this like recruitment system. It's kind of is it like a nemesis system? I guess like in the Middle Earth games if you played those.
I don't have much experience with those, but they're definitely there's so it's a spectrum of how every every person you interact with in the game has a spectrum of how they feel toward DedSec, and so you can influence that directly in different ways. Like I found accidentally running people over tends to make them hate you. So like that's one example, but it's kind of interesting because you can even make players who dislike you recruit with DedSec if you have certain abilities and stuff like that. I haven't gotten that far, but it shows ways to do that, and so it's interesting that it has a history of all their interactions with DedSec if you like look into their bio and things like that, and they even add little small things like giving certain of their NPCs hiccups, which will like alert enemies occasionally because they'll just like hiccup and that's audible. There are other things like I accidentally ran over a beatboxing grandma. I looked in her bio and she's like some famous beatboxer.
Okay.
So
So how have you encountered? I guess this is something that I want to know too. So like you can recruit different people, and can you recruit all and like every NPC you see, or is there what like is there like a gate where it's like no, you can't do this yet, or maybe you have to progress further in the story and then you can recruit this person, or is it pretty much a free for all?
it seemed like there were a few NPCs that were behind a skill that I haven't unlocked yet. So I can't. I don't know if I can recruit them later, but I definitely can't now. and some of them just say hates DeadSec. So I don't know if you can like convince them at all. That's like, for instance, the people I run over, they really hate you. So like I don't know if I'll be ever able to recruit them, but we'll see.
Okay. Okay, so is there? Because I remember in one of the trailers, like it would be you would say, what did they do? Oh, they like influenced a construction worker, right? And then you can use that guy to go into a construction site because he is a construction worker, and like kind of use him to do certain things in the mission. Like, can you switch like on and off the characters that you play to go into certain areas to be like less detected or more stealthy? Is that a thing that you've encountered?
Yeah. So, for instance, exactly what you just mentioned, there are players who have different levels of access based on what they're wearing, like what their job titles are, like skills and stuff like that. So you can make sure to go and like cherry pick those players like from enemy factions and try to recruit them. I can't do that yet because they dislike me, but you know there are ways around that later in the game. So yeah, you can definitely sort of switch up which team member you're using for which mission, and it makes certain things way easier, like getting into construction sites.
Okay. Okay. So, is there ever an instance that you've encountered so far where it's like, oh, I want to recruit this person, but that person's like, listen, you gotta take care of this other person for me, and do all these. I guess it's like favors, I guess, to like to gain their respect, I guess, to so they can join. But like, have you encountered something where it's like, hey, I want you to take care of this person, but that person is someone that you already have like recruited or you want to recruit? Like, have you had to make a decision between two people?
So far, I haven't. I don't know if that's a mechanic they have set up, but I haven't had to make those type of decisions yet. So far, what I've had to do is infiltrate different places and help out these people based on their different backgrounds and relations with DeadSec. So, like, they just basically want you to prove that you can actually help them out before they'll like come help you out, pretty much.
Okay. Does that get tiresome? Is there like a lot of repetitive like quests that you're doing? Like, is it tiresome to be like, oh, I gotta go over to this guy. He's gonna ask me to like go get something again, just like this other person. Like, do you find there's a lot of variety, or it's like fresh every time you try and recruit someone?
So there's definitely a little bit of a pattern where you can see every time you recruit someone, you have to do two smaller tasks and then a final task, basically. So that's pretty much pattern with every recruitment I've seen. But the actual tasks are usually different, and they don't have so far they haven't sent me back to the same place twice to do anything like over and over again. So I like that. And on top of that, the locations they send you to do stuff are feel like they have more of a puzzle aspect to them than previous Ubisoft games, I would say. So, like,
Okay.
in Assassin's Creed, you go somewhere and then, like, scan the area, find a thing, and then leave pretty much, or kill everybody, whatever. But, like, here you have to, a little bit, there's, like, an extra step where you have to solve something, it seems like.
Okay, so maybe more puzzle based. How's the combat? Like, is there situations that you've encountered that where you're just like, oh man, I have to kind of shoot everyone up here, or can you kind of just get away and hack stuff, or does it ever force you into be like, hey, I have to do this pretty much?
So far, all the missions I've played, there's been at least several ways of completing all of them.
Okay,
Some of
that's good.
them you have like that makes sense to me because you have to start with one player, and at least where I am, it's not guaranteed you'll have like 5 or 6 guys yet. So like, if you have a guy who's just bad at combat, they have to give you several ways to do stuff. Like my guy I started with was an esports gamer. He's not like a boxer. It's going to be slightly different gameplay for
Just
him.
one hit across the face, dead. Just, oh, okay, there goes that guy.
There's a little bit of that with one of my other operatives, yeah, but not that guy.
Okay, so what's like the have you played? I know there's like a permadeath option or something like that where if you lose a player or a character that they're just gone. Like, have you messed around with that at all?
I looked at that when I was setting up the game, but it looks as though you have to play through it once with that off before you can play through with the story with that on. So
Oh, okay. It's like hardcore
add an
mode.
extra, yeah, or sort of like a new game plus, I guess. I'm not sure how they're treating that, but it appeared as though I had to go through the story one time with that option off first.
Okay. Or do you plan on like going back to it maybe after you beat it and be like, all right, let's turn this permadeath on?
Yeah, it'd be something I'd be interested in if it continues to be as interesting as it has been.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that sounds like it'll add way more intensity or weight to kind of your decisions. I mean, like instead of just throwing guys out there, be like, yeah, go get him, dude. Like, no problem.
Yeah, and that would definitely, for instance, I wouldn't choose my esports guy to be doing all kinds of different things if I were going into like a situation where he's going to face gunfire. I'd be way more careful about that. So I think it'd make you make different decisions you wouldn't otherwise. So it might be interesting to play through that way.
Okay. I mean, you just mentioned combat. So how is the combat? How does that feel? Like, I don't know how it compares to other Watch Dogs games, but I mean, GTA's combat is fine. Like, it's okay. So like, how does like shooting and driving? How does all that stuff feel?
So driving is one thing, but driving is very sensitive. I'll talk about that in a second. But it's
Okay.
the combat feels a lot like the previous games. So they've improved it a little bit, and they've given you a much larger range of weapons, and they have operatives with interesting like combat skills. For instance, one guy I have is a machinist, and so he carries a giant mallet around, and so that's fun. But the actual the mechanics feel a lot like the previous two. They just tightened up a little bit, I would say.
Okay.
But back to driving, that took some. There was a learning curve there. It's very the cars do not all feel the same. Like they definitely customize the way they move, and they're definitely more sensitive than GTA. I would say it's like you
Okay.
have to can't just turn the wheel all the way every time. You'll spin out everywhere.
Does would you say it feels good, the driving? Like, are you excited to like drive in the game, or is it more like, all right, A to B, I'll just go to point A to point B, whatever.
I'm finding it fun once it's challenging for sure, but I'm enjoying it. And also for players who don't want to bother learning it at all, you can just turn on the auto drive function anyway. So
Oh,
it's
really?
yeah, you just get to select a point on the map and it'll calculate a route for you. And as long as you're actually on a road, it'll take you there unless you're in a motorcycle. It's not
Okay.
available.
Does the car have like an autopilot, or is it just like a setting like in the game?
It's just the X button for on PlayStation. I'm playing it, so it's just
Okay.
just a toggle.
Okay. How does it look visually? Like, does it look like, yeah, how does it look pretty much? Does it look good? Do you notice any like pop in or like low detail like models or characters?
So the first day I played it, I did notice some frame rate drop every now and then, but since then I haven't had any issues. I think maybe they made a patch or something, but it seems to be running fine. Aside from there's a bug where it crashes when you try to leave to the main menu, but that's not a
Oh,
graphics issue. So had no
okay.
graphics issues.
No graphics issues. Okay. How's like the dialogue and the voice acting? Because I know there's like a jillion characters, and I think they used a couple voice actors and did some like voice modulation or AI or whatever to make a bunch of different voices from those like core group of characters. Like, do you notice the voice acting to be like good or bad or just like serviceable?
It's pretty good. There are definitely a couple places where you notice that it's similar voice patterns with like slightly different pitch, but I mean, there are so many different characters. There's going to be a little of that every now and then, I would think. So it's overall it's pretty good, and some of the dialogue is actually pretty funny. But yeah, it's just sort of background stuff, unless you really want to talk to all of the individual NPCs and engage with them and stuff.
Okay. So is there like has there been any like glaring, I don't want to say issues, but like, oh, this is definitely an oversight in the game or something that you've seen that maybe kind of dampened your experience so far? Or is it pretty smooth
Um,
sailing?
Mostly, I would say it's pretty good. There are a couple issues like the crash on main menu
Mm-hmm.
exit. That's not obviously not great, but I bet they'll be working to fix that pretty fast. The other thing I noticed is that the mechanics for like jumping and running are a little strange. Like for instance, sprint is R2, and that's unusual for games, and
True.
the jump is a little bit wonky, but like overall, I'd say it's
Like, is he just
definitely
like
tolerable.
flailing in the air, like, or does
Well,
it
no,
look like, how does it look?
well, it looks fine, but my issue is that it's hard to get it. The timing of the jump seems a little inconsistent sometimes,
Okay.
but you're not like a free runner or whatever, so it's not like a big deal really so far.
Okay. What's the funniest or like most entertaining NPC that you picked up? Like I know they have different perks. Like I know there's one NPC that's like does more melee damage when drunk or something. Like is there any like just off the wall funny traits that you've seen?
I think the hiccups one was probably one of the first ones that just like got my eyebrows up. You know, that was a little funny. But definitely the one that you mentioned that I saw where they fight better when they're drunk is one of the good ones. And they have some characters who have it's just such a wild range that it's ridiculous. There's one that's a beekeeper, and there's another one that you get that's a football hooligan. It's just all kinds of different, like just random stuff like that.
Okay, that's pretty entertaining. I guess they do have the freedom when they have so many different NPCs be like, I don't know, let's just put something random in there. So that's pretty entertaining. And you said you're
Yeah,
playing on a PlayStation 4,
yeah, that's
on
right.
a base model, a slim model, a pro model,
I'm playing
which
on the Slim.
slim model. Okay, all right, then that's good that you're not getting too many technical issues because I know back when Control came out, man, that game, as good as it is and as much as I like it, had some technical issues.
So, yeah, that was stressful on the system a little bit.
Okay, cool. I think there's maybe one other thing I wanted to touch on. Can you can you basically, if you have like a core group of like maybe two or three characters that you really like, do you think you can do most all missions with those characters? Like, do you ever feel locked of like, oh man, this really requires this guy, or like, can you kind of make your
Uh,
way through with a few characters?
I think you could make your way through with a few well picked characters. You couldn't just choose some random guy off the street and make him, amazing because they come with predetermined traits. And as far as I know, you can't change those. So you want to pick someone who has a lot of good traits, or at least a lot of unique traits. So you can, mix and match with what you want to do. And I think if you picked like three or four uh, characters who had really useful and varied traits, you could probably go through the whole game with just three or four. I plan to have a lot more because that's just how I like to do stuff. But
Recruit
well, I
everybody.
think you definitely could.
Okay. Does the recruiting system feel like Assassin's Creed? Because I know they did that with Odyssey, and I don't know if they did that with Origins. I don't remember, but I know for sure it was Odyssey. Is it familiar, or is it more? Is it like pretty unique? You would say.
So it's more than just bonk them on the head and then recruit them like in Odyssey, but you have to because you have to actually talk to them, and they all have their own like specific motivations that they'll tell you about. So it seems more in depth, I guess, and you get more varied and specific bonuses than you do from recruitment system in Assassin's Creed. So I think they just basically added onto it and made it more interesting.
Okay. Cool. Nice. So I guess I don't know. Do you have any closing thoughts or something else that's on your mind that you want to say about the game, or maybe some tips for players that are thinking about picking it up and like, oh man, if I knew that, I wouldn't have done that thing. Anything cross your mind?
So mostly, I guess what I would say, one of the main bullet points of my presentation would be that you should definitely play with the remote vehicle hacks because I made a giant pileup of boats in the river, and that was a lot of fun. So experiment with those because you can also do more useful things like evade the police and stuff like that. But it's a lot of fun messing with other vehicles, I would say.
Okay. Is there like GTA has like a star system if you cause chaos in the world? Is there like some sort of punishment system, or do people go after you if you cause enough chaos?
Yeah, so they have like a private police instead of like the London police system, but
Mm-hmm.
they have their own star system that they'll look for you, and there are also at least one other faction I've encountered of criminals who have their own opinions of you and will chase you down if they feel like it. So yeah, there's definitely that.
Oh, okay. Is there like maybe some areas where it's like controlled by this gang or whatever, and then like if you do stuff there, they'll like get pissed?
Yeah, and they're marked out on the map pretty well. So it shows red like in Assassin's Creed that it's an occupied zone or a restricted area, and it'll if you look around, you can tell which faction owns it and what the deal is.
Okay. Oh yeah, there was one other thing I wanted to ask. Besides the recruiting stuff, like the main story missions, how do you find those so far? Like, are they interesting or engaging? Like, is the story overall like kind of driving you forward to see what's happening?
Yeah, I think so. They it's definitely has more substance to the story than some of this developer has in the past, and they've put more effort into the story. It seems like so. I'm interested to see where it goes, but you could definitely play the game skipping the whole thing and still probably have a lot of fun if that's your style. But you know they put more effort into it than some of the other past titles, I think.
Okay, that's really good to hear because Ubisoft. There's like this whole like Ubisoft fatigue, basically. Just like, oh, okay, it's a Ubisoft game. We know what we're getting. It's gonna be this giant world with these generic quests and everything. So it's good to hear that there's more mustard on the hot dog this time. There's more story, basically.
Yeah, I think they definitely tried to add more of that, so it shows a little bit.
Okay, cool. I mean, I don't have any other questions really. I guess that wraps it up. So you would recommend the game as of right now, as
Yeah,
of whatever amount of hours you're playing?
definitely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, well, I think that about does it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll try and get this up on YouTube and the website later. Again, this is Watch Dogs Legion's impressions. We're not gonna have a review or anything up because this game is, what is it, 30, 40 hours most likely. So just don't. I just don't have enough time to do it. So sorry. This is why we're doing these impressions right here. So if you like that, we got a podcast live every Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Very important. Twitch.tv/FPSGuides. And then check out all our content on YouTube. I just did a video about the lack of ray tracing in Demon Souls, which is apparently a big deal for some reason. I don't even know why. It looks gorgeous the way it is. But, there's that. And there's also other impressions from Avengers, Hades, a bunch of other games, Tony Hawk. So check those out. And, thanks for watching. See you guys later.